The animation begins with a well-known detective named Sherlock Gnomes and his helper Dr. Watson. At that time, they are trying to rescue some gnomes who were taken by Moriarty, Sherlock's enemy. As a gnome detective who protects all gnomes, Sherlock won't just stand by when they're in trouble. He fought against Moriarty, their enemy, and won, making all the gnomes really happy. But Sherlock forgot to mention Dr. Watson or ask for thanks. At that moment, Dr. Watson had to be patient. A few weeks later, the gnomes moved to a new house. Among them were Gnomeo and Juliet, a loving couple. The gnome leader announced that his time was up and passed leadership to Gnomeo and Juliet. They were expected to create a happy, loving home. On her first day as leader, Juliet seemed really happy. She didn't even listen to Gnomeo and went off on her own. Gnomeo noticed this change and decided to find a flower to bring back Juliet's old self. Luckily, the flowers were nearby, and another gnome helped Gnomeo by giving him a cell phone and GPS to find them. Soon after, Gnomeo snuck around the humans until he got to the flower shop. Just as he was about to pick some flowers, Juliet showed up looking for him. She stumbled upon Gnomeo trying to take a flower. Her voice distracted him, and he dropped some things, setting off the alarm and bringing security to the shop. Fortunately, Juliet saved him from getting caught. In another part of town, Sherlock got a sudden report from an informant that all the gnomes had vanished without a trace. When Sherlock investigated, he found everything in its place, but many gnomes were missing. Dr. Watson noticed this too. After looking into the patterns of the crime, Sherlock suspected Moriarty was behind it. At the same time, Gnomeo got a distress call on his cell phone saying the gnomes were in trouble. Soon after, Gnomeo and Juliet hurried home just as Sherlock and Dr. Watson arrived, sensing something was wrong with the new house. There, Dr. Watson also warned Gnomeo and Juliet that a criminal was behind the disappearance of the gnomes, so they were told to stay out of the investigation. Luckily, Juliet found a card with a picture of the letter M and the number 9. This clue could help Sherlock find Moriarty, the main suspect. Using the clue, Sherlock realized it pointed to Chinatown. He told Juliet and Gnomeo not to follow, fearing it could disrupt the search, but as the new leader, Juliet couldn't stay back. She insisted on following Sherlock and Dr. Watson. Gnomeo followed too, not wanting Juliet to face trouble alone. Seeing their determination, Dr. Watson revealed that the M on the card meant Moriarty, Sherlock's old enemy, who had survived their previous encounter. For years, Moriarty had been causing trouble for the toy world, especially the gnomes. One day, he encountered Sherlock, who was working to protect all the gnomes. Now that Moriarty is believed to be alive, he's back to his old ways, kidnapping gnomes and leaving clues behind. He challenges Sherlock to find him within 24 hours or else he'll harm all the gnomes. When they got to Chinatown, Sherlock instructed Gnomeo and Juliet to wear disguises. He explained that their last visit caused chaos. Unfortunately, their disguises didn't work, and Sherlock was immediately recognized by various Chinese toys, including their leader, the Lucky Cat. Through a translator, the Lucky Cat warned Sherlock and his friends to leave, angry that Sherlock had damaged his home. But Gnomeo tried to explain they were only there to find clues about Moriarty. The Lucky Cat didn't listen and sent a troop of cat ninjas to chase them away. Sherlock asked Dr. Watson and Gnomeo to hold off the cat ninjas while he and Juliet searched for clues. While they were in the warehouse, Sherlock found another card with a different design and a toy plane attached to it. But they couldn't stay any longer because Gnomeo and Dr. Watson couldn't hold off the cat ninjas anymore. Soon after, Sherlock showed them a way to escape through a window using a lantern to float down. Then, Sherlock took them to the Natural History Museum, where he had fought Moriarty before. Gnomeo, feeling exhausted from the journey, thought Moriarty might be there seeking revenge for his defeat. But Sherlock believed it was a trap and asked them to wait nearby. At that moment, Juliet tried to stop Gnomeo and asked him to follow Sherlock, but Gnomeo didn't want to waste time. He went into the museum to check things out, with Dr. Watson following him. Meanwhile, Sherlock and Juliet saw a toy gargoyle noticing Gnomeo and Dr. Watson's arrival, apparently planning to kidnap them. But fortunately, Dr. Watson managed to fight back, causing the toy to fall from the top floor. At that time, Sherlock and Juliet realized the toy was behind the kidnapping, but there was nothing they could do. Juliet could only watch as her lover was taken away, while Sherlock hid his sadness for losing his trusted assistant. Despite this setback, Sherlock continued his mission to find clues and save the gnomes from suffering the same fate as Gnomeo and Dr. Watson. Meanwhile, it seemed the toy gargoyle wasn't acting alone. Another Gargoyle was taking care of the gnomes, providing for their needs. Then, Gargoyle admitted to Nomeo that it was just following orders, not trying to harm them. However, Nomeo didn't trust the creature's words. He told some friends and they planned to escape because they felt they were in danger. The next day, Sherlock solved the puzzle from the cards found in Chinatown. He explained to Juliet that the toy plane attached to the card indicated they should look for more clues under a tree in the city park. Long story short, Sherlock and Juliet dressed up as squirrels to avoid being seen by humans. Unfortunately, the clue they needed was attached to a bone doll owned by a dog. Thankfully, Sherlock managed to avoid the dog and retrieve the card. Soon after, they found another clue in the form of a shirt button, which led them to their next destination. It didn't take them long to get there. Their next stop was a doll shop run by a female doll named Irene. Besides being the boss, Irene is also Sherlock's ex-fiancée, whom he once broke up with. The pain from that breakup still affects Irene, and she holds a grudge against Sherlock, refusing to help him. She even kicks Sherlock and Juliet out of the shop, telling them not to return. However, Juliet doesn't give up. She goes back inside and tries to reason with Irene. Juliet asks Irene to understand that she's not just acting for herself, but for the safety of her family and her disappointed lover. She promises to do whatever it takes to protect them and maintain their relationship. Juliet's heartfelt words touch Irene, and she willingly gives Juliet the next set of instructions. The card Juliet found is the final clue, with a different pattern and 4 poetic stanzas written on it. In reality, Sherlock already knows who's behind the gnome kidnappings from all the clues. He also knows the gnomes are being held behind the gates of the Tower of London, where he and Dr. Watson first solved the case together. Meanwhile, Nomeo tries to distract one Gargoyle so he can save the gnomes, but another Gargoyle stops him. So, they move the gnomes to another place. On the other hand, Sherlock and Juliet arrive at the gates and are surprised to see the kidnapper. It's not Moriarty, but Dr. Watson. He apologizes to Juliet for involving her family and admits he did it just to get Sherlock to acknowledge him. A while back, Dr. Watson felt overlooked by Sherlock, who always seemed to be the center of attention among the toys. Dr. Watson, despite always being there to help, just wanted a bit of acknowledgement and appreciation from Sherlock. His words made Juliet realize she'd been treating Nomeo the same way, ignoring him and being selfish. As rational beings, it's important to value differences and respect others. Respect is crucial for building healthy relationships. But when Dr. Watson goes to free the gnomes, they're all gone. The Gargoyle admit they weren't working for Dr. Watson, but for Moriarty, who tricked him and took the gnomes. Soon after, Sherlock attempted to fight the Gargoyle but was quickly defeated. They were all captured by the Gargoyle. However, Sherlock's attack was actually a tactic to find out where the Gargoyle came from. By examining the chalk stains on the shoes, Sherlock realized they came from the Tower Bridge. He also realized they were on a ship heading towards the bridge. Moriarty had trapped Sherlock to finish off the gnomes on the bridge. As the ship passed, the bridge tower would lift, causing the gnomes tied up with chewing gum to be destroyed on the other side. Luckily, Nomeo and some surviving gnomes discovered Moriarty's plan and secretly followed them to the bridge. Shortly after, Nomeo planned to distract the bridge guards by making them think there were still humans on the bridge. Then he went back inside to rescue the others. Meanwhile, Sherlock, Dr. Watson, and Juliet managed to escape from their confinement. They grabbed a bottle of soap and flew away using a drone belonging to a ship worker. When they arrived, they found Nomeo confronting Moriarty. At that time, Juliet and Nomeo tried to distract the Gargoyle, while Sherlock faced Moriarty. Meanwhile, Dr. Watson used the soap to free the gnomes. Soon after, Dr. Watson successfully freed the gnomes just before the drawbridge towers lifted completely. On the bridge, Nomeo and Juliet tricked the humans into seeing the Gargoyle's forms. To avoid being caught, the Gargoyle turned into stone and fell into the water. Meanwhile, Sherlock continues to struggle against Moriarty, who keeps attacking him with fireworks. Their fight moves to the tower, where Sherlock is joined by Dr. Watson, Nomeo, and Juliet. Unfortunately, their drone is destroyed by Moriarty's attack. But there, Sherlock doesn't give up and ultimately sacrifices himself to defeat Moriarty, knocking him into the water. Fortunately, Sherlock survives, but he's left with permanent scars on his legs. Despite this, he's grateful for realizing his mistake towards Dr. Watson. Sherlock learns that respecting Dr. Watson is essential because respecting others is fundamental to one's identity. The animation ends. The moral lesson from this animation is even the greatest detectives can mess up. So next time you're in a sticky situation, just throw some soap and hope for the best.